I do a movie and I never think of awards or anything because that's not what motivates me. What motivates me is the role and the story and the people that I'm working with. The amount of films which are being made, 90% of them are not pretty meaningful. It's like fast food, it's good on on the tongue, but it's not necessarily good for your health. For the Indian audience to grow or to help them to understand complexities of life, to understand nuances, to be able to perceive subtle aspects of life is quite black and white. Still, the grays are not at work in the narrative style of India.
Do you feel that, in terms of the movies that you tend to do, get more of a global recognition than they do back home?
That's a very loaded question, isn't it?
Hello and welcome to another episode of Table Talk. Before I move ahead, here's a quick reminder to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Jyotsna Mohan. Well, this week we have noted actor Adil Hussain joining us. Well, he's been making waves abroad. He's also been winning several accolades for his recent films. He joins me today to speak about the recognition both globally and whether it translates into the audience back home as well. As a leading actor from the Northeast, he's also speaking to me about whether inclusion of Northeastern cinema is mere tokenism and whether the coverage that happens in the Manipur violence as well is something that is reflective of our mindset, and that hasn't changed. Join me as I speak with Adil Hussain. It's a very busy time for you, isn't it? You've got plenty of stuff that's going on. You've got a movie that's coming up for release, The Sergeant, I believe. You've also, the Storyteller that opened up at the London Indian Film Festival. You're still winning lots of accolades for Footprints on Water. So what does it feel like to be in this space?
Well, it feels pretty fulfilling because when one does a movie, and especially I can talk about myself that I do a movie and I never think of awards or anything because that's not what motivates me. What motivates me is the role and the story and the people that I'm working with, their understanding of cinema, filmmaking. And the most important part for me in a filmmaking is that when I'm actually acting on the floor, that's the most important part. And the least interesting part for me is to promote the film. Because
That's the hustling part.
That's the part that I generally find it very uninteresting because I feel that that's not my department. I don't know anything about promoting. But these days, I guess the promotions, it wasn't like that when, in olden days. The actors, the producers did the job. They will put up posters and some announcement would come on some newspapers or microphone. Like I grew up in a small little town in Assam. On a Friday afternoon, there will be a rickshaw, a three-wheeler rickshaw with a mic and a guy who would announce that this film is going to be on from tomorrow or today. And that used to be the end of the story. But these days, the engagement of the actors, especially actors, those who are little known or more known, they have to keep visiting all these different cities and all kinds of promotion. That I find it a bit overwhelming for me, to put it lightly. So these films which are being now traveling across the globe, there are 3 of them in the festival circuit now: Storyteller, Footprints on Water, and Max Min and Miyazaki. Of course, Sergeant is releasing now in the digital space. So it feels very good that the films are being recognized across the globe and people are talking about it, getting awards. Footprints on Water, Natalia Siam, she got 4 awards as a debutant director. This is her first film. I got 3 of them. So it is good for the film because we are in a marketplace and one has to somehow accept the fact that, market forces are a very strong force in this business.
Do you feel that, in terms of the movies that you tend to do, get more of a global recognition than they do back home?
That's a very loaded question, isn't it?
If you want to skip, just press the buzzer.
um, I think the kinds of movies that I do, the stories are a bit complex, not laced with a lot of spices. Casting is not necessarily the market would like lap it up, but even with great casting, films have flopped. So that's not the thing. But if it is star cast and all that, and it's promoted well, if the story is well said and well crafted, then people do come watch the movie, and the star system works. But these kind of movies that I generally get into are which speaks to me personally, and I feel those are important subjects to talk about. Like for example, there is a movie called What Will People Say? It's a Norwegian film that I acted in 2018, and it ran for 6 months in Norway, and that would be considered a very avant-garde art house movie in India. It is a mainstream movie in Norway. So the taste of the Indian audience probably is very, very different. The taste has not yet nourished properly by the Indian filmmakers and the financiers for the Indian audience to grow, or to help them to understand complexities of life, to understand nuances, to be able to perceive subtle aspects of life. Is quite black and white. Still, the grays are not at work in the narrative style of India. In the global cinema world, I think the movies that I do make more sense.
Has it complicated matters even further the fact that, even the cinema goer has become more polarized now? He's looking to see only what he wants to see.
That is generally the case. I think this is a very human tendency, Jyotsna, because human beings, unless they are educated, not necessarily in the schools, but when I say education, I meant that the parents have, the society has sort of nourished them and reared the younger generation to understand complexities of life. If you read Gita, you would realize that how Krishna is trying to make Arjuna understand it's not about only black and white. It's not that you are on the side of the other, you're on the side of the dharma. You have to also take into account all kinds of aspects in order to understand what life is all about. So somehow I feel that Indian cinema in general, since last 40, 50 years, before that, there were wonderful movies being made. I'm not saying wonderful, very meaningful movies are not being made now, but not necessarily the amount of films which are being made. 90% of them are not pretty meaningful. It's like fast food, it's good on on the tongue, but it's not necessarily good for your health.
Yes.
It is tasty on the tongue, but if you keep consuming it, it is extremely bad for your health. Most of the Indian cinema is like fast food, as far as I can see it in my perception. It does not really help you to grow as an aware human being in order for understanding the macro aspect of the human life, the complexities of human life. The producers, the financiers, they consider, I think, film only as a business, not necessarily as an art form. And that is one of the greatest problems, I think, because there are amazingly talented writers, directors, actors, and other aspects which are related to filmmaking. We don't have any dearth of talent. We have very talented people. But somehow the market dominates the art, and that should not be the case.
It's the same with print media. It's the
Yeah,
market is dictating, and it's kind of, it's the
yeah,
same. It's actually in the same quandary as creative arts, I think, pretty much falling into that. But the
yeah.
OTT platforms, has that, the kind of work that's been done on OTT platforms, it's a little bit different from what we're used to seeing in our cinema to some extent. Is that pushing the envelope?
OTT platforms are contributing towards promoting meaningful cinema. I think those platforms need to do more. They need to understand that cinema is a very powerful medium, and it does impact greatly on the young and impressionable, youngsters, and even grown-ups. Probably they could scout. They could form a committee or a group of people to scout out brilliant scripts written in the regional areas of India. That was the job that NFDC used to do, and still NFDC does it. But NFDC is not funded well. I think they need to be more proficient, more proactive on this. So OTT can actually do that. But the CEO of the OTTs have to be visionaries, which is too much to expect, I guess. They probably are the visionaries how to make more money rather than how to create good art. They create art which are very engaging. They're extremely talented in telling a story to engage you, but not necessarily with the subjects or the stories which are meaningful. Like one of my teachers says that vulture, for example, they're very, very skillful birds. They fly high in the sky. They're extremely powerful and skillful how to detect, but they are looking at the lower depths of humanity. Like OTT platforms are filled with dark matters, if I can put it that way. In Shri Aurobindo's word, I would say that they cater to the lower movements of humanity. It's which are easily roused. The violence, the sex, the fear, and all that. So yeah, OTT is playing a very important role, but I think they need to up their game, not only to make money, but also to help the humanity to uplift their awareness.
I don't know if it's needed to prove a point that, everything dark or everything,
Yes.
profound needs to be peppered with abuses in every second. I think independent cinema is finding it tough to survive with the commercialization has always been, but I think there is just
Yeah.
so much more emphasis on it now.
It's not only in the film world, it's across the globe in every aspect of humanity, every aspect of human life. I can see that in America. I'm here, everybody is aspiring for a bigger car and a bigger house and a bigger portion of food and a bigger size of cola and whatnot. I went to the supermarket yesterday. I couldn't find a small of something that I was about to buy. I'm like, why the packets are so big? And then I was having a conversation with one of my relatives, and I said, tendency to have big house or bigger car is not necessarily a very graceful way to live life. You don't need so much. Why I'm mentioning this, the connection with this and commercialization, is because to get something more, you always need more resources to acquire more. So this tendency of human being that which caters to the insecurity or the fear of human beings, that we need more in order for us to have a comfortable life. But that has been proven wrong time and again. Independent films had to struggle. It struggled before when it was known as parallel cinema or art cinema in those days. Now we are struggling in a different way. But at the same time, I must say that it is getting better. There are so many avenues now. Film festivals, like independent film festivals, are across the globe for the independent filmmakers to showcase their work, which is happening. So I wouldn't say that it's a bleak, hopeless, doomsday situation, but it is definitely hopeful. I am hopeful. Things are changing, but as you know very well, that very slow process.
What about the northeastern cinema? And you're a big name of cinema from the region. The inclusiveness that we always speak about, is it still tokenism?
Probably yes, you're right. But as I said, it's changing slowly. Very slowly, very, very slowly. I have mentioned it before in some other interview that the mainstream cinema makers could be, some of them are, of course. I have seen some very good cinema being made in mainstream Hindi cinema, or probably in southern cinema as well, talking about social issues. But we need to be more aware of the political boundary of our country, where mainstream cinema could include northeastern faces, to introduce them to the rest of India. But we should do more, especially film organization. uh, a government body probably, also with talented filmmakers from the Northeast that will be funding Northeastern filmmakers, very talented filmmakers. We have amazingly talented filmmakers like Rima Das and Bhaskar Hazarika. I've not worked with Rima yet, but we are about to work soon. There are so many young filmmakers that I'm watching short films made in the Northeast. They could be funded and help them to make cinema which could be distributed across the country. How many North Indians would, filmmakers would take South Indian actors, and how many South Indian actors, filmmakers would North Indian actors? Like, for example, Rajinikanth in 2.0, Akshay Kumar is a villain. And when a South Indian actor comes to North Indian films, as a villain, so we have this. The other is always scary, if we don't know about them. Danny Dengjongpa from Northeast India had been mostly cast as a villain
As a
in
villain.
Indian filmmaker. So that idea of the bad and good uh, has to sort of melt into gray slowly, because we are in a very powerful position. Audiences are not in a powerful position in terms of impacting lives of people without making it a boring film, to make it engaging, to make engaging film but meaningful film. Ang Lee, for example, A Life of Pi, it ran in Guwahati for 5 weeks in Full House, but in that film we didn't have any star. Like those days, Irfan was not really known very well. Neither was Tabu. Tabu was known in India, Irfan was, but across the globe, it earned 1 billion, almost $1 billion. So if you make a film well and put in hard work, and if you know the craft of storytelling through the medium of film, then you can earn a lot of money. Commerce can happen without compromising the art aspect of it. So
how do you counter this, the trend of this propaganda movies?
I think you have to just keep doing your bit, small bit you can. You don't have the machinery behind you. You don't have the money behind you. You don't have your PR agencies working for you. And also, quite often, you don't have the intent also to do the things which you personally feel that is good for human growth. You have to just do as much as I can. As I quote Shaman in South America says that, don't forget that you are you still give light being a candle in front of the sun. So just hold on to human ideas had been always there in the history of humanity. So, but it somehow grows on people slowly. And I do not look at it as a sudden emergence that this is now happening. We see it as a sudden happening of this huge wave of ideas which are not necessarily evolved ideas, because it is coming to us through social media and constantly we are being bombarded with the news. I once met Dalai Lama and I asked him, do you think the world was a better place before? I asked him around 5, 6, 7 years ago when I met him. 1-to-1. I had a 6 o'clock in the morning appointment with him with another friend of mine. He says, yeah, on your behalf, I asked the same question to Queen Elizabeth, and she said that the world is a better place because the idea of human rights, the idea of child rights, the idea of women's rights were not there in those days. Now it is a common understanding, though not necessarily we are practicing it as much as we should. It is there. We understand. We can think about it. We it's in the mainstream human. Consciousness, the highest values of human beings, which had been propagated by the great masters of India, right from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to Dattatreya or Sri Aurobindo or Ramakrishna or Kabir. The compassion, love, respect, integrity, empathy, respect, and all those great ideas that the human being potentially could reach. So these ideas it seemed very weak to human beings generally, because the survival for the fittest idea is constantly being propagated. But we don't need to do that. We can behave ourselves in a better fashion.
Puts into perspective the fact that, Adil, you do speak up for things that are wrong, and whether it's the wrestlers or anything else.
Yeah, I think something which touches me, and I think it is important to just. So I have a problem with speaking up in an antagonistic way because I feel that dialogue is very important. Uh, Dialogue. If you lose the basic communication tool, which is a dialogue between two human beings. I mean, I have my five brothers, including me, five, and I have certain issues with my brothers, my elder brothers. And if we don't have a chat, my elder brother doesn't listen to me. You know what I mean? If we don't have a base, if I'm sitting on a high horse that I have a better moral value or I have a better understanding of life, if the liberals think that they are better off than the right wing or the left wing people, if the left wing thinks we are better human beings than the right wing, then we are not going to go anywhere. To change society, even to have it, to must come from the intent of trying to understand the other, where that person is operating from. My son doesn't listen to me when I come from arrogance. Forget about a stranger would ever listen to me. They would look down at me or they would rather shut me off. So how are we going to change the society, in those cliche dialogue, that sentence that we use, if we don't have the basic respect for the other person, no matter where the person is coming from, no matter how we perceive that person. There are 7 point some billion population on the planet, and we have 7 point some billion perspectives, and we are all our own sides. I'm not on this side, like President Bush very according to me, very foolishly said, if you are not on my side, you are against me, or something like that. I mean, that is one of the most, unintelligent thing to say, because we are all on our sides. We have all our personal perspectives, and I can be right, and so can you be right. We must find a way to have a dialogue, no matter if seemingly at the moment you think you are wrong or the other person is wrong. But if we don't dialogue, if we stop the process of communication, then nothing can be solved. At the end of that thread is you have to fight. And where would you go with that fight? We kill each other. I mean, that's not where we want our society to go.
The way the coverage has been for the Manipur crisis, you're from the region, so does that bother you as well?
It does bother me. Definitely, it bothers me. I think that it's very, very disturbing, to say the least. For me to see that a part of Northeast is burning, but I don't understand what exactly is going on there. I am not on the ground. I keep hearing reports. I don't know which side to believe in anymore, because it had been such in last few decades, that I have to finally find out on my own way that what is actually going on there. I have no clue. I have to believe in either CNN or Fox. I'm like, where do I go? I have to find my own judgment, find a way to arrive at my own conclusion. Nowadays, very, very suspicious of taking anybody's viewpoint as like this is the truth. No, it is not.
So I read somewhere very interestingly about how you met your wife on.
Royston Abel, who is my dearest friend, and he's more than my family. He sheltered me when I had no money whatsoever for months and years, and he actually made sure that I get married in a decent way. I didn't have any money, so he financed my marriage, including stitched my clothes. I mean, he made sure that I have decent clothes to wear. He directed a play called Much Ado About Nautanki, a wonderful play in Delhi in 2000. And he brought me in as a coach to the young actors. And one of them was Kristen Jain, who is my wife. And there was also Konkona Shane and three more, Anusha Bose and Geneva and Charu. So Kristen and I, we felt deep affection for each other. Then she was cast as Desdemona by Roy, and then during that rehearsal, the rehearsal of that play, And during the tour, we performed, she performed Desdemona and I performed Othello next 7, 8 years. And in the process, we fell in love and we decided to get married. And yeah, we are married for last 17 years.
An absolute pleasure speaking with you.